everyone. This is Robert Landau. This is the first in a continuing series that we call Presenting Your Retirement Center Management Executive Staff. This is going to be a recurring series, so do tune in as often as possible. It's going to be my pleasure each episode to interview a key member of the RCM executive team. And we are starting at the top today with none other than Dave Keaton, who happens to be the president of Retirement Center Management. Thank you for being here today, Dave. Much appreciated.
Oh, thanks, Robert.
I know there's a lot going on right now, so thank you for taking the time to be with us.
You bet.
So a couple of personal background questions to start. Where are you from?
All over. All over. Literally, I was born in Connecticut.
Oh.
I've been to Ohio, North Carolina, California, Utah, and finally Texas.
Wow.
Yes.
Where in Connecticut?
Norwalk, Connecticut.
Oh, yeah.
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 So just outside of New York City area there.
Exactly.
Very beautiful part of the country. Unfortunately, my parents moved us away before I could really appreciate it, but and ended up in Columbus, Ohio.
Columbus, Ohio. And so brothers, sisters?
One brother younger brother lives out in Monterey, California area. So he and his family are out there, and my parents were out there until recently. So although my mom just moved here to Houston, my dad had moved to Houston, was actually living in one of our communities not too long ago.
Yes,
Mm-hmm.
yes. So schooling, majors, focuses of education?
Well, I started out and I was in rehabilitation therapy. Did that for several years. First job was working for the state of California at one of their large state developmental centers. So I actually started in the special needs field.
Wow.
Worked with children and adults that had special needs. In fact, my first assignment was with it was at a large state hospital, and it was the senior program. So I had kind of the dual exposure of working with seniors that also had special needs. And in fact, many people with Down syndrome actually develop Alzheimer's disease, and they think that there actually is some sort of link between the two. So I had a lot of exposure to folks that had Down syndrome that had gotten into their 60s and had developed Alzheimer's disease, so which then kind of led me into this field. When they were shutting down the big state institutions in California, I found myself needing a job. My wife worked there as well, so we both needed a job, so I made the switch to go to over into senior services.
Very cool.
Mm-hmm.
So during those years, before everything got shut down in California,
Mm-hmm.
I would think that that really strengthens one's character to be of that type of service. What were some of the things that you learned, not only about yourself, but about other people during those years? Did you take anything from all that?
Well, actually I found it easy to work with a group, and I think when you find different groups that you work well, it just happens naturally. I do know that I'd have a very difficult time working maybe with other types of groups. I don't know if I could work in the prison system, or I'm not sure I would even do well in the regular education system. But I found working with special populations or seniors, and especially memory care, because that was kind of my focus after I moved into the aging services piece, was memory care. I just found that I just naturally kind of gravitated towards that, felt very comfortable, and so I knew that was the right place to be. As far as building character, certainly working for a large state hospital, my first office was actually a former rubber room, as they called them. I literally had a slot in the door where they used to put the food through. So they left the original door up there, so that was my office. And it was just a really unique experience working there. At the time, there were about 2,500 people that lived there
Wow.
full time, from infants all the way to the senior program. And working in an environment like that, I think, was unique. Certainly always had good stories to tell the friends. And, every once in a while I would tour them around, into some of the old units that had been shut down. And, we could walk through there, and they still had a lot of the old equipment from the psych hospital days. And, so it was very interesting. I think a good way to start my career. What I did find is that I wanted to, and somebody told me this, that I could actually impact the business more if I continued to move up into administration, because initially I started in, kind of direct care, and I thought that was important, but you kind of occasionally felt like you were coming up against a wall just based on, bureaucratic issues that were happening and, budget constraints and so forth. And somebody said, if you move into administration, you actually have much greater impact than you even do in the direct care side of things. Now certainly I'm not saying, we need people that are doing direct care and they do a fantastic job. And everybody that works for this company, you got to give them, a lot of credit for being there every day and working one-on-one. But if you want to really impact, an industry or a great number of individuals, then being able to move into management allowed me to do that. So I went into healthcare administration. I have my master's degree in healthcare administration.
Wow.
From St. Mary's College out of California. And took that and then started moving into the administrative roles that I'm in today.
I see that as a perfect path that you've taken. One thing has led to another, which has brought you to what you're doing today. So give us what your job description is with RCM.
Well, my title is president, but I think what that really means is, I like to consider myself sort of the head cheerleader, and, the person that's moving around and helping everybody else do their jobs. Certainly we've got a lot of people that work for this company. We're close to 1,800 employees,
Wow.
35 locations.
Wow.
And I know personally, I can't do that. And I always tell people that. I said, we've got to be a team, because there's absolutely no way that you can operate a community, meaning drive the bus, cook the food, pass the medications, clean the floors, and take care of the residents all by yourself. It has to have a lot of different people. And I feel like the president's role is, well, it's two things. It's one is being that head cheerleader and making sure that everybody knows which direction they're going and giving them the resources and the tools to do that. And then my other job is also supporting Jim Gray, who's our owner and CEO, in his strategic vision. My job is to take his strategic vision and put it in play and make it happen. So I think that's kind of in a nutshell what the president's role is.
It's a lot on your platter, but I have to pay you a compliment, because to me, it is all about communication.
Mm-hmm.
That's one of the main things you just
You
highlighted
bet.
here. You, unlike many other presidents, are amazing with email turnaround. I'll email you a question and within 5 minutes, and it may not sound like a big thing or a frivolous thing, but that is so important, because it says to me that you're proactive.
Right, right.
And particularly with this virus situation that we have now, one of the best ways, if you ask me, to fight it is being proactive, and that's what a president needs to be.
Sure.
So I love how you say that one of the main objectives for you is to be of service. And it is about teamwork.
Right, absolutely.
So many presidents and many other companies sort of separate themselves from the everyday operation of stuff, and you don't. And I think that makes a huge difference in the RCM
Well, thank you. Thank you for saying that.
objective.
I think it's, it's something that I've always focused on, and probably because I started as a caregiver. I worked, in a group home for kids in college and was a caregiver. I gave showers, I changed individuals, I helped feed them, I gave medication, so I understand what it's like to be a caregiver. And then, worked my way up through that state hospital system and, then over into senior services. But, to me personally, the biggest thing that I've always told myself is never to be a hypocrite. I want to make sure that, I am actually doing what I say I'm asking other people to do. And I need to be the model. I really agree with that, and believe that I have to be the model for what's going on out there. Again, I'm not out there, doing the direct care anymore, and I know that my job has changed, but, I need to be able to give the resources and those tools and allow them to do their job, so that they can do it well and ultimately take care of our residents.
Yeah.
If our staff are comfortable and they're happy, and, I know this sounds cliche, but, it's true. If they're happy and have the tools necessary to do their job, they should do a much better job in taking care of our residents, which ultimately takes care of us as a company, and it's that great circle.
Yes.
Everything's a circle, and it all comes back around, and each area has to support each other.
In the name of teamwork, which is really
Right.
so you've been in the trenches and you know what it's like to be there, which is huge.
Yes.
Which is huge. We'll talk about the virus in just a second.
Okay.
But in terms of retirement center management, it's been growing incredibly
Yes.
over the last number of years. What would you say are the three areas of focus that would really be of interest to residents in terms of where the company is
Okay.
now and where it expects to be going?
Okay. Well, certainly as we grow, one of the things, the advantages of being a certain size is that you can start adding more specific and unique resources. So what I mean by that is, as you get large enough and you have enough revenue coming in, you can start bringing on specialists. For example, bringing on somebody that is a specialist in memory care and Alzheimer's disease, bringing on lifestyles and activities specialists, focusing more on some of the unique programs. When you're real small, everybody's doing everything. And you're running around and you're just trying to make sure that everything's going the right direction. And again, as you get a certain size and a certain scale, then you can start bringing on these specialty programs and people that can really focus and hopefully enhance. And so honestly, as you get a little bit bigger, the benefit is specifically to the residents is, hey, now I can offer all these unique programs and things that I couldn't do when we were small.
Mm-hmm. That's huge. That's huge. Mm-hmm. So what makes retirement center management different than other senior retirement companies? What's special? What's unique about RCM?
Well, we'd like to say that we're local, although we're starting to get a little less local in that we have communities in Arkansas and Oklahoma City and spread out throughout Texas. But our core base is still here in the Houston area. And one of the reasons I signed on with this company was Jim Gray. When we were doing our interviews, we walked through several of the communities, and the residents knew him, and he knew them back. Which I thought, okay, here's the CEO of an organization. He very easily could sit in an office and not be engaged. And as we're walking through our Tanglewood community, everybody's, Mr. Gray, how are you? Nice to see you. And he's like, and he knew everybody's name. And he's walking through, and that to me was a selling point. I said, whoa, okay, I really like that idea. We want to be the size of an organization where we want to be able to survive difficult times like we're experiencing now. If you're a real small company, sometimes economic pressures and so forth can make you disappear. Mm-hmm. So we want to be the size to be able to ride out difficult times, but we also don't want to be such a large organization that we don't know who our people are. I want to know all of our executive directors. Now, I don't know all 1,800 people, but, I know all of our executive directors. I know most of our sales team, and our nurses and so forth. And I think that's really key to have that kind of personal touch. And, some of our competitors, they do a great job. We're all doing the same thing. It's important that, we as an industry kind of band together, especially, with the virus going, through our communities now. But, if we can keep that personal touch, I think is absolutely key. We don't want to become just a real estate holding company. And when you've got, several hundred communities, there's no way for those senior teams to really know who everybody is. And so, I make an effort to go out and visit the communities. Every year I kind of rotate around and I visit each of the communities. I talk to all the teams, and it's great because it's nice to see them. It's nice to see what's going on. They usually like to do little barbecues and lunches and so forth, and we all get together. And I try to recognize the teams that way. I want to do more of that. Sometimes I get drawn away from that, but I have to refocus. I think that's the most important thing again for my role is to not forget that I am that cheerleader. I am that person that's there to help motivate the teams so that they can do their job.
Yeah, I love that. I love that attitude. I love that mindset. Mm-hmm. That's what it's all about.
Absolutely.
So let's talk about the virus
okay.
and these current difficult times.
Yes.
So tell us a little bit about that as it relates to the RCM initiative.
Okay. Well, certainly the big thing to lead off with is that it's constantly changing. The country is dealing with a tremendous amount of change. I think we're all, regardless of what company we work for or what we do in life, we're all impacted by this virus. And quite honestly, a lot of people don't know what to think about it. It's very surreal. And, we're all trying to adapt the best that we can. The issue that we face is that we're at the forefront. Our population, the people that live in our communities are the number one most impacted part of the community because of their age. and because of maybe their health and so forth. And so we are really at the front lines of what's happening along with the hospitals, and trying to figure out what is the best way to manage this situation. How do we keep our residents safe, healthy, socially engaged? It's very hard to socially engage when you're trapped in your community and you're asked to not come into groups, and we have to shut down our dining rooms, and we can't take the bus out anymore, things of that nature. It's really difficult for that socialization piece. And in fact, that's one of the big topics that we keep discussing, is how do we get in front of people. In fact, that's why you and I are here today.
Yes.
Is to figure out ways to provide some socialization for people that are basically in their apartments all day long, trying to socially distance and stay healthy. How do we engage them? So, utilizing technology, utilizing video, smaller, one-on-one type things, where a caregiver can go and drop off some activities, to a resident. We've set up these carts, where they can roll different activities down to each apartment, and it may have some books on it, it may have some card games on it, some different board games, and maybe that staff person has kind of a one-on-one interaction with those residents in their apartments, so that they do get that socialization piece.
Yes. How do you find the residents have reacted to these guidelines, which are extremely necessary?
In general, everybody's been very accepting. I mean, obviously, when you put parameters and restrictions on people, this country doesn't like restrictions. Okay, I mean, that's what we're founded upon, is freedom, and we're all used to going where we want, when we want to go, and nobody telling us what to do. And because of the virus, we have these government mandates. They're coming in and saying, hey, you can't do this, you can't go here, these stores are closed. And so obviously there's going to be a reaction to that, and people are going, wait a minute, what do you mean I can't come into the community and visit mom? I come here every day and I bring all my relatives with me, and we all have these big luncheons together. A lot of change is required right now, and I would say 99.9% of the individuals have been very accepting of it. Some people are a little bit more, not accepting, and we have to work with them. We have to help them understand, what is happening and how serious this is. I think it happened so fast that nobody really knew how to respond to this, and so some people are just kind of coming into the understanding of like, well, whoa, wait a minute, I've got to not go visit mom, because if I go visit mom, I could introduce the virus into this community and impact a lot of people in a very, very negative way.
Yes.
So I think each day, as we're having presidential news conferences every day, as the mayor of the cities, various cities gets on and tells everybody what's going on. The state of California is sheltered in place, the whole state. And now New York City's doing the same thing. So, everybody's getting the message. And so it's making it a little bit easier for us. We were leading the way. We actually were more restrictive than general society almost 2 weeks ago.
Yeah.
I mean, again, because of our population, we knew, hey, we got to pay attention to this thing. And so we had restrictions in place that were well beyond anything else going on in general society 2 weeks ago. And now everything else is caught up. And so now that it's caught up, people are kind of more understanding.
Yeah. Makes a lot of sense to me, because you're creating a very safe atmosphere for people to continue to live in.
Absolutely.
It's huge.
Absolutely.
And the perception that senior retirement community companies are just creating these things, well, yes, but there's a darn good reason.
Right.
And where do you get the guidelines from in terms of how a community now should function?
Okay. Well, certainly initially we were getting information from the Center for Disease Control. CDC was putting out recommendations. I think they were watching what was happening over in China and somewhere, in some of the Asian countries, and what was happening and how they were responding to it. So the CDC has been watching for a while. And then, of course, the outbreak occurred in Washington State, and so, data became very quickly available, and they said, whoa, we need to really start putting some restrictions on. So CDC's been giving us guidelines from the get-go. Then the states started getting involved. I think, the states, the state of Texas, actually, quite honestly, it was the state of Arkansas that led the way. The state of Arkansas was the first state to put in major restrictions that all the other states now have, and they did that several weeks ago. So they led the way, very aggressive in their restrictions, and are still the most restrictive out of all the different states as far as people visiting. They pretty much just locked them down, and they understand how important this is. But now we're getting a lot of guidance. Obviously, the city of Houston and Harris County, the state of Texas have all chimed in now and overlaid all these different mandates saying, hey, here's how you need to approach this, and here's who's allowed to visit, who's not allowed to visit, and giving us good guidelines and procedures. I mean, we get on a regular call with the state. We had one this morning. And there was about 500 people on the call. That was interesting because nobody knows how to mute their phones, and evidently one gentleman was actually even reading his debit card off to somebody, and it went out to the entire phone call. So kind of funny, funny things happening. But these are uncharted waters, and nobody really knows how to deal with it. But we get on these calls all the time. We monitor the CDC website. We check all the county health information, and just try to stay abreast of it. Every day at 4 o'clock, all of our executive directors get on the phone with our executive team, and we just talk through questions, and we go through any new regulations and mandates that have come out, and we look for any trends that are occurring, and we can share that information because everybody's getting a slightly different experience or something new that nobody's experienced before, and so they can share that with the group. And I think back to your original comment, the communication is absolutely key in this. If we can keep the communication going and keep the ideas flowing, we should be able to manage this and get through the other side of this.
Yeah, and that's important too, getting through to the other side of this, because there is the other side. There will be the other side. We just don't know when that's going to be.
Exactly.
So yes, I think it's important for everyone to understand that this is temporary. We just don't know how long temporary is.
Right, exactly.
So to keep things safe, it's very important. Those words lockdown can scare people, but
sure,
you know
absolutely.
what? It's so very important. It's so very important, and I love how RCM is really on the crest of that wave.
Right.
Because I think during these times, it's okay if you're following what's going on and then reacting to it. But how much better is it and more productive is it if you're kind of 2 weeks ahead?
Right. Well, and certainly we're seeing that, and there's a lot of anecdotal evidence out there now, and it's showing, hey, look what happened in China, and look how South Korea has handled, how they really did lock down their societies very quickly, and they seem to have, had a great impact on the spread of the virus, and from what I'm hearing, some really good news coming out of Asia because they approached it this way.
Yes.
And so we want to do the same thing, at least in our small part of the the world and society. Certainly with our communities, we're going to take an aggressive approach. And I know people feel restricted, and it can be frightening and angering to people. But if I can get us out of this faster than general society, then hey, great. And if I can protect these residents, then that's what we're going to do. And I apologize to people now if they feel that we're being too aggressive, but I don't think so. I think we're doing what needs to be done to get this taken care of.
Yes, I think that's a huge mindset and a directive to follow. You're creating a way to go. In an area where we have never been before.
That's right. It's kind of like Star Trek.
It is kind of Star Trek. My goodness. Are you Captain Kirk or am I Spock? Or?
I don't know. Yeah, you could be Spock.
Okay.
Is that good?
I've got the ears. I kind of.
Yeah. So, yeah, I mean, it is. It's very unknown to us. And it's unknown to the world, and everybody's got a lot of anxiety. And I think that's one of the big things that, I want to do with talking to you today and talking to our residents and talking to our staff is, hey, they're making a lot of progress. If we follow the guidelines and follow the data that's coming out, that we will get through this. They're introducing a lot of new therapies, and they seem to be having some success with some of the different medications that are starting to come out. And although they can't for sure say it's a cure, we seem to be moving in the right direction. And each day, and I have my ups and downs just like everybody does. It depends on what news you're reading at the time, and sometimes you look at it and it's like, oh my gosh, and then other times you look at it and say, okay, we're coming out of this. And so I think the more we can try to assure people that we're putting good practices in place and we're taking care of those residents, that reduces the stress on the families that are at home. If they know mom and dad, husband, wife, brother, sister are taken care of, and we're doing everything we can, then hopefully that's reducing some of their stress, because they're at home managing their own family, and they're managing their kids and other members of the family that might need care as well. And so if I can do our part, and make sure that everybody's well cared for in our communities, I'm helping to reduce that overall anxiety.
And just the simple idea of having a staff member come by and knock on an apartment door at an RCM community with an activities card.
Right.
That's huge.
Absolutely.
Because it
Absolutely.
shows that they care, and we'll be back in 2 hours to
Right,
see
sure.
how you did on that puzzle or whatever the story may be.
You bet.
It sounds like RCM is being very proactive with this, and that starts at the top.
Right.
So before we close, and I'll ask you to do one more thing before we do.
Okay.
But I would like to, from me to you, commend you
Well, thank you.
for the mindset that you are exhibiting here, because I think a lot of people in your position could kind of become a lot of the panic that is out there.
Sure.
But what I get from you just sitting here is strength, concern on a positive level,
Right.
and assuredness that not only will everything be okay, but everything is okay, and to just take it minute by minute
Right.
and make sure that the team is okay,
Right.
and that the residents are okay, and the
Absolutely.
staff that serves them. And I think that's the right approach, and I commend you
Thank you.
and
I
every
appreciate that.
RCM employee for keeping the ship afloat.
Right. Yeah, they're doing a great job. I mean, we've got a great, this office here, I've got a great team that's in place, and, I see them, on a daily basis, and they're out running around, and, they're right in the thick of things. And, I think that's really key. And every person, to a single person in this community, and, within this company and within our communities, I think has that attitude.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm really, really pleased and very proud, to say that our company has stepped up and is managing this situation very, very well. And so to, Kendra and Diane and all the folks, and there's so many to mention, David Clement, on our finance side, I mean, they're still here, the team's outside the door here, and they're out there and making sure that, the business is still functioning, because we still have to run, we still have to buy our food, we still have to pay the electric bill, we still have to make sure that our staff get paid. So they're, the unsung group that's sitting back here, they aren't out on the front lines, but they're making sure that the business is going. So having them do that, and then the frontline people, they all come together, and, it's exciting, and I will be glad when this is done, and I want to throw a giant party, and, everybody's hearing from me now, we're going to work on that, and we've got to celebrate getting through this, once this is over.
Yeah.
But right now we got a lot of work to do. And we need to stay focused, and we need to stay vigilant. Vigilance is one of my key words that I've been using in almost every email I put out there, is we can't slack off on this stuff.
Right.
We know what we have to do, we've got the policies in place, and we have to be consistent with it. And I know they are, because, when I get these occasional calls from families and so forth saying, I got stopped at the door, and that makes me feel good. That means that they were doing the right thing.
Job. Yeah.
So.
Yeah. Everything you've been saying is hugely important, but I also love the fact that already you are planning and visualizing a celebratory party
Right.
once this is through. Because I believe that if you keep that alive,
True.
even though it's not going to be tomorrow, that's how you get through it.
Right, absolutely.
Because you already see the day when this is done.
Right, absolutely.
We just don't know what date that will be or what month, but you're holding on to that.
Right.
And that's how anybody gets through a storm.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
I love it.
Yeah, good.
So last question.
Okay.
If you could, from your heart to theirs, give a message to RCM residents, what would that be?
I think, again, just everybody come together. Again, I don't want to sound too rah-rah and, this fake message, because I know people have a lot of anxiety, and I know people are scared, and I know there's a lot of unknown that's out there. But, we do have a super strong team in place. The country and the world seems to be rallying around right now. And I'm looking at this from a personal standpoint. Any message I'm giving to them is the same message I'm trying to tell myself, is, hey, you know what? As a world society, I think we're going to figure out this, and get past some of the individual concerns that, and the finger pointing and all the stuff that goes on. I think it's absolutely key that, all the scientists in the world are working on this, and that makes me feel better. And, once we get that information out there, we can put these things into play, and we will make sure that it gets out to our communities as quickly as possible. So I think, anybody that has anything to contribute. Our residents have a lot to contribute, and if they can talk to their neighbors and make them feel better, do that. If they can, reassure their younger grandchildren that, hey, I've gone through a lot of things in life, and grandkids, you'll be okay, because, our youth are not used to this at all. I have a younger daughter, and, phew, it's just like, they don't realize it, how important this is. And so I think, our seniors can reach out to the younger people in the community and do their thing. People always talk about, hey, when you move into a retirement community, you don't have responsibilities anymore and you don't have any purpose anymore. Well, here's a great time for those folks living in our communities to start reaching back out. They've gone through a lot of stuff in their lives. They've gone through wars and all kinds of turmoil. If you're in your 80s and 90s, you've gone through a lot of stuff. Okay, and so why don't they share that back? And they can help our staff feel better. They can help their grandkids and their kids feel better. So I think that's a really great way for our residents to be a part of the solution here.
I do too. So everything you've been talking about is all about teamwork. And I think on a greater level, even beyond retirement center management communities, the only way we are getting through this as a human race is teamwork.
Right, absolutely.
Yeah, so
100%.
You're creating the model for that.
I'll
here
do my
in the
little
company.
piece. If I do my piece, maybe it expands.
But that's all we need to do, each one of us. So kudos to you.
Well, thanks, Robert.
And Dave Keaton, thank you so much for taking time out of your busy day, particularly during this time, to share your heart with us.
Well, thank you, and we're excited about the programs that you're putting together. I think this is part of that, Robert, is having you out there and talking to those residents, and we're going to have this Live Life Well TV, which I think is really cool. You and I were talking about this just the other day, and it sort of just came together. So I think having those kind of things out there are really, really important, and having multiple people with positive messages out there. So, and of course, if wearing jackets like that, you're going to make everybody feel good.
Well, you have to expect the crazy jacket, right?
Absolutely. Looking great, looking awesome. So,
thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. And thank you for your time, Dave. And
you bet.
we look forward to having you back on this program again soon.
Yeah, good.
Thank you.
All right.